All right, let's dive into something really fascinating. Psychology is showing us that super high intelligence often pops up in ways we just don't expect. We're talking about these subtle, sometimes even misunderstood habits.
So, let me ask you, when you hear the word genius, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it some lightning fast problem solver? Or maybe someone who just seems to have all the answers, right? Well, it turns out that whole popular image, it's kinda off. The real key isn't about thinking more or even thinking faster. It's about thinking in a fundamentally different way. So let's get right to the heart of it. Maybe the best way to understand this is to stop thinking about a high IQ as a faster processor and start thinking of it as a completely different operating system for your brain. And this really nails the distinction, right? The misconception is that it's all about speed, like having a faster mental calculator, but the reality is so much deeper. It's about a whole different way of seeing the connections and the patterns that are hidden just beneath the surface. So, what does this different operating system actually look like in the real world? Well, let's start with how it handles social situations, how these minds actually process other people. Okay, so the first rare habit is this: they run internal simulations of conversations. Before a really important talk, they'll often play the whole thing out in their head, almost like a branching video game, exploring all the different ways it could go. Psychologists actually have a term for this. It's called advanced predictive processing. And this is basically how it works. First, they model the conversation. Then they test out different responses to see how each one might land. And finally, they try to optimize for the best possible outcome. Now, to you and me, this might look like classic overthinking, but it's not. It's actually incredibly advanced strategic preparation. And all that simulating, all that thinking ahead, leads directly to this second habit. Because they've already mapped out the possibilities, they become less focused on what people say in a single moment and way more focused on their patterns of behavior over time. So, what are they tracking exactly? They're looking for consistency or inconsistency between what someone says and what they do. They're spotting contradictions. And they're picking up on these tiny, subtle shifts in behavior that most of us would just completely miss. It's this high-level pattern recognition that gives them a much clearer read on what's really going on under the surface. Okay, so that's how they process people. But what about ideas? How does this unique cognitive wiring affect the way they take in new information and new concepts? Ooh, this is a big one. Well, a lot of us have that knee-jerk reaction to a new idea. We either love it or hate it right away. These folks often practice what you might call cognitive patience. They just let an idea sit with them. They look at it from every single angle before they even begin to form a solid conclusion. I absolutely love this quote because it just gets it so perfectly. See, the goal for them isn't that quick thrill of being right. The goal is the long-term, solid foundation that comes from being precise. It's a really subtle but incredibly powerful shift in priorities. Now, this next habit might seem totally backward at first. They often spend a ton of time exploring things that have absolutely no immediate practical use. It's not about achieving a goal, it's just driven by pure, raw curiosity. So, what kind of stuff are we talking about? Well, they might get obsessed with the rules of some random, complex system, or a super niche scientific theory, or a completely abstract philosophical idea. And you gotta ask, why? Because their mind isn't just motivated by what's useful, it's motivated by a deep, driving need to understand. For them, the learning itself is the reward. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most profound habit of all. This is where that different operating system really flexes its muscles. It's not just about thinking about the world, it's about thinking about thinking. This is one of the rarest abilities out there. It's called cognitive detachment. It's this incredible skill of being able to step back and just observe your own thinking process, almost like you're a scientist watching an experiment unfold. The fancy psychological term for this is metacognitive awareness, and honestly, it's seen as one of the highest forms of intelligence. So what does it mean? It means you can actually question your own gut reactions, you can analyze your own biases, and you can even challenge your own logic just to see how strong it is. So you see, it's not that they just think. No, there's a whole other layer to it. They watch themselves think. They treat their own mind like this fascinating system to be observed, understood, and fine-tuned. And that right there, that is a complete game changer. And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? All 5 of these habits, simulating conversations, reading patterns, delaying judgment, exploring the unnecessary, and detaching from your own thoughts, they all point to the same thing. True, profound intelligence isn't about how fast you are. It's about depth. It's about processing the entire world on a fundamentally different level. So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. As you were listening, which of these habits, maybe even just a little bit, did you recognize in your own way of thinking? Thanks so much for joining me.